Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the EV Café. As hopefully most of you will know, my name is Johnny Berry, Head of Decarbonisation for Hitachi Capital Vehicle Solutions and moderator, Chief Barista for today's session. And I'm joined by the amazing EV Café crew, otherwise known as the Avengers. They are Sarah Sloman, Head of Future Mobility Partnerships at Elmtronics. She is also our very own anchor lady, who will be delivering the news round section of the show, which some of you would say is the highlight of the session. Then we have Paul Kirby, the business owner of EV Essentials. He is our acronym police, and he will challenge the guest if he doesn't understand something, which is great because if he understands it, then we all will.
Absolutely.
John Curtis, the Sustainability Marketing Extraordinaire. Actually, I said that wrong. Extraordinary is what I meant. He is our very own mail boy. But what does that mean exactly? Well, what we do is we have something called the mailroom section of the show, where we ask you as the audience to ask questions in the Q&A tab, or live on air if you prefer. And this will happen after every special guest presentation or talk. Quick one, best question will win an EV Café mug. And winners will be decided by John at the end. So, and T&Cs do apply. In other words, our budget doesn't stretch to overseas shipping. And then we have Sam Clark. However, I can't see him on the screen at the moment. I believe he's in an airport going on his holidays. But I will introduce him anyway, just in case he appears a bit later on in the show. He is the Chief Plug-in Hybrid, sorry, the Chief Vehicle Officer for Gridserve. It's a bit of an inside joke, and also keeping up the tradition in getting his name and or title wrong. He also plays a very important part in the show. He ensures our special guests keep to their time. So on with the show. What's on the menu today? Are we putting the EV driver first, especially when we look at infrastructure provision, interoperability opportunities, the view of the driver, and what is to come on the horizon for people making those key decisions right now. So to begin, we will hear from Adam Fletcher from Geotab, who will tell us why they have decided to be a partner sponsor of the EV Café. Then we will welcome back a regular to the EV Café, Mel from Zap Maps. She will give us an overview on what's coming on the horizon and an update on the number of sockets out there today. We will then pass the mic, so to speak, to Linda Gray, who is new to the cafe, but not new to the EV industry. And she will be sharing her first-hand experience and the issues people are facing right now, so we know what needs to be addressed within the public network. Hopefully those people that can make a change are actually on this call. Finally, we will hear from another newbie to the show, Charlie Cook. I hope I've created this little strap line for Charlie, actually, just before the show. So you know the vehicle is right for you because you know your daily habits, but have you got the right charger, right energy? Are you getting the right charge?
Right. Do we know the definition of a strap line? It's a little briefer.
So I hope you like that little plug, Charlie. Excuse pun.
Feel free, Charlie, to use it on your website. I'm sure it will make all the difference.
This is why Johnny's not in marketing.
True, that's true. That's why you're the marketing director, Charlie. That's Charlie from Right Charge. And how can I forget? We'll also hear from Sarah Sloman on the amazing news update towards the end of the show. But just quickly before we get on with the show, and I stop rambling on, I want to run by the digital housekeeping, especially for any newcomers. First up, your involvement is important to us, so please use the Q&A tab to ask us questions. We will, of course, endeavour to answer them during the mailroom sections of the show, hosted by John. If you want to come off mute and talk to us, then please raise your virtual hand during this time, and the Speaker of the House, Paul Kirby, will address you. And for anyone on camera, please raise your hand as if you're at school if you want to talk, because we may end up having 9 or 10 people on the screen at any one time, so it just avoids crossing over each other. So that's it from me. That's enough of me. Let's get on with the show. And to start with, John, we have some amazing Patreons and sponsors now. Why is this important to us? Why is it more important than you filing your nails?
What, me?
Yes, you, John.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah.
And we can hear you and see you.
Our sponsors are so valuable to us, and we really couldn't do this without them. In all seriousness, My Energy and Kate Tyrrell, absolute legend, and we can't thank you enough, Kate, for all the support you've given us. My Energy, suppliers of everything from chargers through to systems to make your electric vehicle that much easier to use at home. Geotab and Adam's here, and Adam will speak for himself, but have recently come on board as a key sponsor and again and a partner. And I think that's the point, that this is about partnership. It's not about just handing over money. And our job is to work collaboratively with our partners to make the very best of EVs and to make it easy for people. Because very often we speak in lingo, we speak in terminology that people don't get. And our mission very much is to continue to speak plainly. To help us do that, we also have Patreons. We have people who are kind enough to give their own personal money, and we give a shout out to all of those, and in a very particular order, starting with the first ones first, who jumped on board: Lorna McAteer, Neil Durno, Stuart Middleton, Compared Leasing, Anil Kumar Mehta, Elmtronics, Sarah, bless your little heart. I know it wasn't you, but thank you, Elmtronics. Roger Atkins, Paul Barnfather. Paul, best of luck in your new job, my friend. And really looking forward to hearing how you're doing. And the very latest is Darren Anviner, who's just joined us as a friend of the EV Café. So thank you all, because the money that you provide to us doesn't go into our pockets, any of us. It buys these lovely yellow t-shirts, but also allows us to get out on the road, and it allows us to go and talk to people about electric vehicles, about how to charge, how to use them, how to do the right thing. It's not rocket science. It is simple, but sometimes we just need to get out and talk. And that's what we're about, is getting out and talking. Webinars are important, but actually doing the live shows is where we're at. We've got loads of interesting stuff coming up over the next year or so, where we're going to be out, COVID allowing, to go and do that. So all of our partners, all of our patrons, thank you.
Amazing. I'm constantly amazed and thrilled and blessed by the fact that these guys step up. You know, it is fantastic and great to have that partnership, right? Because there is so much going on. And just as a sort of subject for discussion, I think it might lead on to something later. But Daimler have recently put out a big old video about how they're going to be transitioning. And one of the things that came out of it for me, other than they're going to have every vehicle in their fleet in their availability of vehicles, everything electrified by 2025. They're going to have 3 new platforms by 2025. It includes vans. Yes. It's so important. I mean, look, we're going to talk about charging infrastructure, and charging infrastructure and vans is like a massive thing. But one of the things that they talked about was this plug and play that they've launched now, because they've launched the EQS. They've launched just plugging in through their Mercedes Me network, which is over 30,000 strong across the world, moving to 60,000 by 2025, I think. And this is not an advert for Daimler, but it's a prod at anybody else listening, that this is the kind of investment and thought process and commitment that you need to have in order to be successful. And so let's hope that everybody does it. But this plug and play idea around charging, making it easy for drivers, making it easy for fleets just to plug in, it recognizes the vehicle through the handshake and nothing else needs to happen. It starts charging, and you know that's a benefit in itself, right? Because oftentimes the infrastructure is not quite working or other things like that. But this is plug it in and away it goes. And for me, that's what makes a difference. Right, Sarah?
Shout out as well to Gridserve. Sam's here, he's in the airport, he might struggle to speak, but Gridserve and also Fastnet that have trialled it on their chargers. So it's a really nice study, a really nice glimpse of what can be, and not forgetting there's already UK leaders doing it. So yet again, it's something that public wanted, public spoke about, industry tried to follow, standards were set. Paul Barnfather's in the chat, I think he'll have a lot to say about it. But I think if Sam can chip in, that'd be really nice to hear from him about how Gridserve have tackled the problem, possibly. Not to worry.
He's frowning and under pressure.
I can do. I am under pressure slightly because whilst none of you can see this, I'm actually in the middle of an airport. So I keep hearing the tannoy go off and my internet keeps crashing and everything. So it's really quite a challenging day, although I'm basically the only person in the whole airport. So there is that. Yeah, auto charge. Yeah, it's a really useful functionality. I think that's going to be needed in the industry. It still requires a little bit of thought process and how we're going to integrate people into it, whether it be through registrations or more apps, etc. So there's I think the first and foremost is a contactless payment, but similarly the next stage really should be something that makes it seamless, akin to what Tesla do today with their own cars on their own superchargers, where you just plug in and away you go, or literally walk away, because everything else is done for you. And yeah, we do it through the MAC address. So we learn the vehicle's MAC address, which is one of their unique identifiers, and by doing that and learning the person's bank details as well, of course, and storing that on file, we've only got to do that process once. And then for the rest of the time, you don't need a card of any kind whatsoever. You just plug in and go. It's not something we've launched yet, but it's coming later on this year. It's been tested already and it's working very, very well.
I mean, Paul Barnfather mentions that we need to nag the OEMs. Is it dependent, Sam, in your experience, or anybody in their experience, is it dependent on the vehicle having that unique identifier, that MAC address, or do you think it's beholden on the charging companies like your own, Sam, and Elmtronics and others that are able to kind of provide that recognition of any vehicle?
Yeah, I think it is beholden upon third parties to do it in the same way that our sponsor Geotab is a company I used many years ago, because I had lots of different vehicles and I couldn't get all the telematics to work with different types of OEMs. So they created a solution to funnel it down. And I think probably in the charging infrastructure space, we need to do the same thing, in the sense that we're never going to get all the OEMs to play ball and do it in the same fashion. It's just never going to happen. So typically there needs to be a third party interaction that funnels that data into one conduit. And every vehicle everywhere has its own MAC address. So there is one thing, at least, irrespective of the OEM, that there is the same as a VIN number. There's a unique identifiers in each vehicle, irrespective of the OEM. So that gives you just the beginnings of continuity across different brands to provide the solution that will work long term. And the beauty of it as well is in the fullness of time, cards will become something you can, well, they already are. You could use an RFID card or a contactless card with a different vehicle, and no one can tell. Whereas if you turn the vehicle into the wallet, then that takes away any risk of fraud or theft of electricity as well, because the car is the wallet. So there's a lot of good reasons why it's not just slicker, but it's also better security.
And so the question then is, what, because Ian Muller's just asked it in the chat, what happens when you sell the vehicle? The MAC goes, and then obviously how do you separate those two? So it's something that Paul Barnfather then mentions. He says, how do we educate people to let the world know that we want this? Because we're talking about contactless, right? Everybody thinks, oh yeah, we want contactless, but actually better still, we want to just plug it in and forget about it. But we've got to educate, and I think this is why we've had such fun doing this, and why by partnering with My Energy, Geotab, other people that may come along, we're able to do that education, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer the first point, I think it's a little bit like you assigning anything to an account. When you stop using it, you need to disable it, and then you can re-enable your next asset, whatever that might be. I'm struggling off the top of my head to think of a particular example, but there's lots of times where you have a particular asset that's assigned to you, and then you give it back, and then it's you need to delink it to whatever system you're on. So it's the same principle. It just has to be managed either on an individual basis. And we're talking to, as you might imagine, some significantly large fleets about doing this on a big scale. And that will require an entire database of MAC addresses that will be constantly linking and constantly evolving over time, so that we've always got the most up-to-date information. But it's just an accountability thing like anything else, to be honest.
I suppose it's no different to the mobile phone. I mean, I'm sitting here with a mobile phone that at some point I'll donate to one of my family, and I will de-enact that. It won't be my phone anymore, and somebody I'll factory reset it, and somebody else will be able to put their details in, and away you go.
Yeah, Dylan just mentioned that as you were mentioning it in the chat, actually. So yeah, sort of the similar sort of thing. But it's interesting, we've got Geotab coming on, and they obviously take data from vehicles, not only through devices, but through, and I'll let Adam do all the talking, but telematics as a whole, or vehicle data as a whole, providing it into a platform of some description will give all the vehicle identifiers and because every vehicle needs to have an individual identifier, doesn't it? You know, to differentiate one from another and to be able to identify. So I guess it is beholden on the manufacturers, one, to provide easy access to that data if it's going to be managed outside of themselves, and second of all, when they're building electric vehicles, because the architecture is very different from an OBD to an electric vehicle, which is something I'm learning. It's really helpful to kind of for the manufacturer to highlight that information to make the ease of use as paramount for the driver, which is what we're talking about today, isn't it?
Yeah. On that note, Paul, it's about time we welcome Adam Fletcher from Geotab onto the show. But as we know, he's not just any special guest. We are very excited to announce that Geotab are a partner sponsor of the EV Café. So welcome onto the show, Adam. It's great to have you on here.
Hey, Adam, you're on mute. Sorry, mate, that's bingo. And he's still on mute.
Still on mute, still got there.
Oh, there we go.
Guys. Thank you for the introduction, guys. And yeah, can you see my screen at the moment?
We can, but we can also see the presenting bit as well. So that's kind of covering there you go. That's it. You got it.
Now we're clicking. Okay, so conscious of time, guys, I'll skip straight into it. So thanks for the introduction. And what I'm going to do now is just go through some slides and talk through sort of, about Geotab and why we've chosen to partner with the EV Café. So you'll see on this slide here, there's a section where we talk about over 500 partners in a flourishing ecosystem. I think you guys have already alluded to it. You know, we very much see all of our partners as an important part of what we do. And this is why we're proud to now be sponsoring and working with the EV Café as your data and telematics partner. And we look forward to working with you guys, just increasing knowledge and awareness and the uptake of EVs in the market. So how did we begin with EVs? Well, I think it was alluded to earlier by Sam that we began our EV journey about 3 years ago, and it was through the acquisition of a company called Fleet Karma. They were leading the way when it came to fleet and EV adoption. And at the time, Geotab were in discussions about either partnering with them or acquiring, but more as the discussions got deeper in, we noticed that our cultures matched, our sort of mutual commitment to EVs matched. And I think, again, coming on to the other point, we had an issue really where Fleet Karma, with 2 or 3% of their end customers' fleet had EVs. The rest was obviously still ICE vehicles. And then for Geotab, we had the high proportion percentage of our end customers' fleets were ICE vehicles, and we needed the EV solution. So the rest, as I say, is history. And the benefit now is that we can partner with the end customers. We have over 100 people from the Fleet Karma business now that sit within Geotab. And with that, they bring over 10 years experience of touching and dealing with EVs. So all of that now sits within what we call our Geotab Energy division. As you'll see on screen, we launched one of the pillars that we sell around, and that's basically around a sustainability pillar, which that, along with our safety pillar, is kind of the most critical functions within the fleet world today. So because of those years of experience, we've got an in-depth knowledge now of an understanding of the challenges faced by fleet managers. You'll see some of the quick highlights on screen here that fleet managers ask us when they're looking to start their journey. But as is often the case, some of the considerations they're probably not aware of. So part of our relationship with end customers and through our resellers is we can help them along that journey, particularly when we look at scaling electric. So successful EV adoption actually requires good data. So it's an important message. Telematics data can be an asset in all stages of the fleet electrification journey. But since EVs don't all follow the sort of mandatory data standards, getting that data from the vehicle is quite tricky. It's vital that the telematics solution supports a wide range of different EVs, makes and models. And currently today, we support over 170 different types of EVs in the market, which makes us a clear leader within that industry. So next, I want to look at how we go electric. So that EVSA assessment that I alluded to on the previous page, we can give our end customers a personalised electrification plan by using real-world data to assist with that. So we look at vehicle procurement, what vehicles can transition to EVs or even hybrids. TCO, so what are the lifetime costs for moving to EV, looking at procurement costs, maintenance, things like fuel and other factors. How much can they reduce the emissions? So by making that step, and it's important to point out here, part of the EV journey isn't about transitioning your full fleet here today. It's about transitioning those that can now, and then going along with that journey. So we work with them through that process, and through that we can help them show how they're improving their reduction of CO2 emissions. And then finally, the next piece of the jigsaw is what infrastructure is needed. So we can provide that full detailed personalised electrification plan for them. And all of this is put into a decent report so they can make informed decisions. And so next, we've got really our whole EV strategy. So product functionality. I mentioned earlier about supporting the EVs. So we do this for a process that we call reverse engineering. So we have to go out and touch every new vehicle that comes. We figure out how to install into the vehicle. We then work out how we can get all that rich data back into our platform. And then that rich EV data allows us then to look at all the benefits of using an EV and using the telematics system in partnership. So yeah, quite an important piece, because we're not talking about track and trace of an EV here now. We're talking about things like state of charge, power in, power used, and all that rich EV data, which you have to go and attend the vehicle and do that reverse engineering. Or, as alluded to earlier, we've got OEM partnerships, which we are building out, and keep working with the OEMs to see how can we do that without the need of going to touch that vehicle. Next, we look at charging partnerships. So working with partners is a critical strategy, as alluded to earlier on. We need other experts to be part of our ecosystem. We're experts in what we do, but there's various charging partners that we can work with across the globe that are experts in what they do. And for us, it's about bringing them together, or bringing all the companies together to go and deliver to help the end customer. And then data insights. So a wise man once said, data schmata, and in a weird way, that's true. If you just collect all these real data and you produce a massive report that someone's got to sit and run through, there's no real benefit to the end customer there. So here at Geotab, we collect all those data sets, and then we provide a valuable insight, which gives the actionable data at the output for the end customer to then use. So the Geotab system provides real-time view of the fleet, showing the current state of charge and charging status of the vehicles. This will allow proactive EV fleet management, especially when prioritising things like charging. An EV running out of charge on the road would generally cost a lot of money. So proactive EV fleet management allows for better charging management to prevent things like this happening. So one of the cool functionality of the system, so even if you're not looking at the system itself, you can create bespoke alerts. So these alerts allow to set notifications tailored to that particular fleet. A good example of this is the push through notification. So we can say your vehicle's done charging, it now has got enough charge to complete the next job. You can take that vehicle off charge and then put the next one on. So again, helping the depots or the companies themselves manage that whole charging process. The system can monitor all charging. So this report here is the smarter charging with vehicles. So you can see the traffic light system that we've got in there. Fleets will be able to look when their EVs are ready, when they're ready to do the next day, and also importantly highlight if vehicles aren't going to be ready on time. So again, it's about helping fleets manage that charging process so that they're not, the next day, I guess, if you're having to unload a vehicle because it's got no charge and put that load onto a new vehicle, again, significant costs attributed to that. And then the Geotab system can be integrated with charge management systems to achieve a complete smart charging solution. So working together so end customers can manage facility load and reliable prioritization. So on this graphic here, you can see how and what that looks like. And then over the years, we've leveraged our big data capabilities to build some really nice tools based on all the EV data we've collected. So you'll see on screen here, we've got things like the battery degradation tool. We can look at how batteries are affected, even by temperature range, for example. If you want to find out any more, if you go to our website, these tools are freely available for anyone to use. So EVs are seamlessly integrated into the system. The fuel and EV energy report, as you'll see on screen here, is a good functionality for our customers to see. So we can, as with our ICE vehicles that we track for, we can see when fuel was added, how much fuel was added, and at what location. And we do the same for EVs, so we can see what location that EV charged, how much charge was put in, and importantly, actually, what percentage of charge was in at that point, and then where did we get up to. So again, this is a good report that our customers use. And again, coming to that, just highlighted there, just give you a better graphic of that so we can see what percentage from and to. Really good information for someone who's operating an EV fleet. And then we can look at, so there's a cost, EV charging cost add-in that we just released. It can handle multiple locations, different electricity rates to accommodate individual needs. And it's a free add-in from the Geotab marketplace that you can put into the solution. So yeah, there's my whistle-stop tour. Happy to take any questions from the team now. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Wow. That is a seriously comprehensive presentation, Adam. Thank you for that. I've got a really basic question. Sarah, I'll come to you in just a second, if I may. Not all transport managers, fleet managers, have that data, in that business owners, certainly smaller ones, are so busy doing the job that very often they forget to look at their mileage traveled, their cost of fuel and all that kind of data. How do you support those people who are less clued up on how their transport works, what it costs them?
Yeah, so we've got, so our partners form part of our reseller model. So our partners become consultants for those end customers. So through that, they will help take all that data and show that in a simplistic way, so we get a good understanding. And whether it's through EV or ICE vehicles, the reseller in particular will work through with the end customer to kind of give them a better understanding. It's about education, particularly on EVs. People know how to procure EVs, people know how to, procure ICE vehicles and know how to manage ICE vehicles. But when it comes to EVs, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's part of the consultancy that our resellers offer. Particular in the UK, we've got Level Telematics, who won our EV European Reseller of the Year. So they've got quite a good ecosystem as well, as have other partners in the UK. So
it's just a case really of get in touch, start your journey. If you don't feel embarrassed that you don't know the cost of your transport, you don't know the cost of moving people and things about, come and have a chat.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Great stuff. Sarah, you had a question.
Well, I did. However, then I saw the time. So I'm going to put my question into the chat box and we can start the audience on that. But over to you, JB. What's next?
Thanks, Sarah. We can come back to questions a bit later on, so no problems there. I just want to say thank you, Adam. I think I can say on behalf of the whole EV Café crew and its members that we are really glad to have you on board, and we really look forward to working with you in the future, fighting the good fight. But now then, it's on to our next guest speaker of the show. We would like to welcome back an EV Café friend, Melanie Shufflebotham, co-founder of Zap Map. But just before we hand over to you, Mel, I'd just like to say, well, I'd like to remind you all that if you have any questions for us or our special guests, then please use the Q&A tab. And just a reminder, best one gets one of these. Over to you, Mel. Thank you.
That's an incentive. Great, just share my screen.
And so far, I've asked the best question, so I'm getting the mug.
I'm trying to go from here. I love this bit. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's really great to be back here on the EV Café. It's brilliant. And when I was asked to talk about the EV driver experience, I thought, great, yep, I can actually talk about our users rather than just think about the charging point data, which is also, I love talking about. But today I'm actually going to be focusing on EV drivers, what our experience from our community of what people really feel they need, and talk a bit about Zap Map and what's coming out. So first of all, Zap Map is very much a mission-driven company, and our mission in line with most of the people I'm sure on this call, is really to help accelerate that shift from petrol and diesel cars to electric cars, really driving to this zero carbon mobility future. And it feels like this is a really great time in 2021. There's a lot of momentum behind it, both from the government, from consumer demand, and also from the vehicle and charging infrastructure. And the way that we play a part on this is around demystifying EV ownership and helping EV drivers when they're out and about. And really our aim is to help make EV charging as simple as possible, which, as we know, is slightly complex area, but this is what our aim is, to try and make it as simple as possible. So we really, when we started up in 2012, which seems a long time ago now, our focus was about not worrying about the technology and thinking about what did EV drivers want? What is it that will help them make that shift to electric vehicles? So we started up Zap Map and as an app, and it's got a number of features now: search, plan, pay, share and drive. Search is really the 101 of Zap Map. So that's all about putting all the different charging points together from 40 plus different networks, lots of different speeds and types and location types, put it all into one place in a standardized form so that EV drivers can find them, find the availability. We've got on 70% of chargers, we have live updates every 5 minutes, be able to filter, so to find different location types, different places where there's more than one charger, also chargers that are compatible with your car. So that's all around the search. Planning was our next phase, so talking to EV drivers, and I'm sure those EV drivers of you out there, when you're planning a longer journey, you need to be thinking about where you want to stop, what your state of charge is, how confident you are. And so that's all around our smart route planner. Thirdly, big issue, again, around the consumer experience, which a lot of people have, is all around payment. We've already discussed that a bit today. And I think we all agree the nirvana is plug and play, but we're not quite there yet. We've got a large legacy AC network. We've got DC rapid chargers, and people want to be able to have a way to pay across all those different charge points. And so Zap Pay was born with the idea of simple cross-network payment across all the networks, or the majority of the networks. And that's Zap Pay from within the Zap Pay app. Our community is incredibly important to us right from the beginning. EV drivers are brilliant at helping other people, sharing experiences, providing additional information that maybe we don't get from the live updates. So last mile information, where exactly the charge point is, letting people know if maybe the connector's broken. So we have a whole community, Zap Chat we call it, and our community is growing really rapidly. Last month, we had over 160,000 active users using Zap Map in one single month, which is a record. And it's great to see 20, 30,000 new EV drivers coming on board every month. Then our fifth area is around drive. So the app is a great support to people. And I know people use it to plan on the app or the desktop. But when you're actually out and about, people want to be able to see charge points and their availability in the car. So we've recently launched Apple CarPlay with Android Auto to come, which allows you to see charge points within the car. So that's sort of where we are with Zap Map. We've gone from the first version of app in 2015, and now we're actually on version 7. So we've been incrementally improving, and really our key focus is to get feedback from the community and really try and understand what they want. So the next slide is really just about highlighting some issues which we think are still there in the market, and we're trying to address, but the whole community needs to be thinking about it. So number one is, I call it just got an EV, now what? So what we've experienced is there's a lot of focus on the car, on the range, on the battery size, but there is a little bit of a mismatch between knowledge and confidence, I think, of people selling EVs about the charging infrastructure. So we've got lots of examples of people who've got an EV and then they don't really, they don't understand the difference between en route chargers, destination and home charging. They don't get the idea of a rapid charger versus a type 2 that you might need to have the cable for. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the education before buying an EV, but also at that moment you get an EV, whether from a dealership, whether from a leasing company, whether from a fleet manager, about helping people get through that first month of giving them confidence to go out and do a public charge. Secondly, I think the infrastructure, we're always talking about how great the infrastructure is, and I think most people when they go on Zap Map, they go, wow, there's a lot of infrastructure there. And just to add some numbers, as we just passed a milestone of 25,000 charging devices with over 3,000 rapid locations, nearly 5,000 rapid devices. So it's not bad at all, and it is growing every month. However, we have to accept there are areas, either geographically or issues with people who maybe don't have off-street parking, and that needs to be focused on and improved. And then the third area is all around charger anxiety. So most people now have their 200-mile EV. Range isn't such an issue, but there's certainly anxiety when you reach the charger, and this is the key thing we're trying to address. When they get there, will it be working? Reliability is the #1 issue. How am I going to pay? What card do I need? You know, which connector do I need? So there's this whole sort of anxiety around that, which is what Zap Map is trying to alleviate. But I think the whole industry needs to work together to be thinking about this consumer charging experience, so that when people go out and get an EV, they feedback and give a positive message. Final slide, just quick recap or quick overview of what's new with Zap Maps. So I talked about Zap Map version 7, which we launched, we released a couple of months ago on iOS. The Android version is coming very soon, hopefully next week. We're very busy onboarding networks to Zap Pay as fast as we can. We're really committed to this idea of people need to have a simple cross-network way to pay. Some people love contactless, but a lot of people want to be able to have a single payment system. They want to be able to search for chargers, plan their journey, and pay all in one app. We're also developing information to support dealers on that point about just got an EV, now what? So helping EV dealers understand where the charge points are around them, how they can support their customers, so that when they go out into the wild, they are confident and able to have a good charging experience. We've primarily been consumer focused up until now, but we recognize there's a big fleet opportunity, and a lot of EVs are going to be in fleets. We're building out our fleet solution. And then finally, last month, we got a Innovate UK grant in association with OZEV, which is all around building Group Planner 2.0, a key feature of which we'll be able to, specifically for fleets, to be able to plan your zero carbon or low carbon journeys. And some other features as well. So that's sort of a summary. And yeah, I look forward to any questions around Zap Map or the consumer experience, or in fact the charge point numbers as well.
Great stuff as always, Melanie. Thank you very much for sharing. I've noticed there are a few really good questions that posted in the chat box. So could I kindly ask that you just copy and paste them into the Q&A tab along with the rest of the good questions. Normally we would cut to a mailroom section of the show now, but I think what we'll do is we'll welcome our next guest speaker, Linda Gray from EV Driver. Melanie, if you don't mind staying on.
Yep.
Those are these changes.
Yeah, just because we've got to keep to the running order, and it will give us a good opportunity to put some more questions in the chat box, in the Q&A tab, and I'm sure Linda can answer a couple of those as well. So Linda, welcome to the EV Café. She's new to the cafe, so let's give her a warm welcome. But yeah, just to reiterate, don't worry, we will open the mailroom, John.
Yeah,
so get your questions ready and copy and paste them over to the Q&A tab.
Well, first of all, big thank you for inviting me on. I'm going to try and share my screen, and I'm terrible at doing these things, so let's see what happens. Where is my presentation?
Don't know, but it's an interesting document.
Yeah,
Is that
hotel guru.
What did I show you? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
And is it the full screen?
It is not.
No.
You need to,
You need to click the presentation button in the bottom right.
Presentation button.
Keep going. Keep the one that looks like a little stand next. So notes.
Yeah.
That's the one. There you go.
There we go.
That's a beauty.
Ta-da! So thank you so much for inviting me on. So I'm Linda Gray from EV Driver. I run a consultancy service for anybody looking to get into the EV charging infrastructure business. So anything to do with EV charging infrastructure. And I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, because in 2016, I decided I would build a public charging network in the east of England, of all places. So there was nobody really driving electric cars, and I decided to build a network. And I found out along the way that it's incredibly difficult. There are many different parts. They all need to come together. And I was asked, one of the questions I was asked was, you know, how do you start your charging network. How do you do charging in the UK? And a great Suffolk saying is, if you're asked directions, is, well, you don't want to start from here, boy. So that's where we are, because we didn't start in the way they did in the Netherlands. And so we've got to start from the point of view that nobody was automatically roaming. So yeah, not straightforward, a very complex situation. We have gone from fundamentally two things to our charging infrastructure being made up of quite a techie situation. We've got to, link back office solutions with SIMs, with different hardware, different software and communications, messages going backwards and forwards. There's lots of technical explanations for this, but I'm keeping it nice and simple because that's what my brain likes. So we have made it complicated, and the poor end user wanted to do this section. They wanted to go to the petrol station and fill up their car. But of course, we've got a number of different things happening that have been greatly improved. You were never able to do this from home. And I know that's only 50% of the population that can possibly fill up from home, but you can fill up at your destination, at your workplace, at many different places. So there are a huge number of benefits, but this is what the EV driver wants, which is exactly what Paul was just talking about. We've got the handshake. Can we do ISO 15118? How simple will it be? And as Sam has said, it's not that simple. There are many different complications because of where we started from. The lessons that we're learning along the way are huge, but can we get to this point? And we need hardware and software and everybody to collaborate to make this happen. One thing that we have is electricity, and we have a car. And this space in between, anything can happen. There is so much going on in this space, and it's a massive space. But don't forget two things, electricity and a car, whether that becomes wireless, whether it's all done with a handshake, or whether we want to keep it very, very complicated. There are two things here, and lots of players in the middle doing amazing things to try and simplify the process. So we will get there, but early adopters have had the painful journey. But with collaboration, we'll all work together and make sure this happens. Now, here's Linda's perfect world. So we've got a maximum of 3 ways to access all your charge points, which would be obviously contactless, roaming, and maybe your QR code or whatever immediate access at an AC charge point. We can't expect AC charging to be contactless, because the only ones making money in those situations are the banks with all the transaction, nibbling away at transaction fees. My perfect world, all roaming platforms must roam with each other. If you're going to be a roaming platform, the first thing you need to do is roam with each other. And I know it's different protocols. We've got a number of different things going on. Acronym time, OCPI, APIs, ICP, whatever you want to call it. There's a number of different reasons why they don't quite talk to each other, but that's my perfect world. All car parks to have EV charging, unless exempt. So this is your workplace charging, your wherever. There needs to be a reason why you're not putting charge points in. Otherwise, it should be expected. And yes, maybe it needs to be 5 parking bays as minimum or something, but we need to get there. We need to look at VAT on charging transactions for residential streets. I think this, this is hugely important, that you've got a discrepancy between 20% for your electricity delivered on public networks and 5%, which is a real barrier for those people who have no off-street charging. So that needs to be factored in. Government grants. Why are we awarding government grants if the hardware is not interoperable? And 24/7 customer support. Those of you that know me know that this is really dear to my heart. I helped to bring this into the UK some time ago with the dedicated services of EV Assist, which is now operating widely across not just Europe now, it's global. And also the AA are now actively offering 24/7 customer support. So there's some great services out there, and we shouldn't have public charging without those. Icing, capital offence, no excuses, off with your head. Worst ones, the worst ones in my book are electric vehicles that ice. That's definitely a capital offence. And I did see somewhere that Sarah mentioned about 7 kilowatts chargers becoming PHEV chargers. I think that's a cracking idea. So that alongside any DC charging, we have a solution for slower charging PHEVs, etc. I think that would make an amazing difference.
Oh, right. So Linda, we've actually been called, so ICE. What is an ICE? We've used an acronym.
Yeah, I did.
And I'm sorry I didn't correct you, and thank you for somebody picking up on it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Internal combustion engines parking in front of electric vehicle charge points.
Yeah, that's icing. So it's the internal combustion engine. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if we have a term for EV icing, EVing, but it's got to be worse probably than icing.
Electric vice.
Oh, there you go, vicing. So thank you. That's about it from me.
Thank you very much.
That's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
John, the floor is now yours.
Hello, I'm back. Right, so questions. I think we've got an absolute cracker here from Randall Smith, and it speaks very much to something you were talking about, Linda, which is about collaboration. Randall Smith asks about the EV one-stop shop where somebody can go buy a car, get their charger, sort out their power, all in one place. It sounds like the nirvana. It should be that simple to buy an electric vehicle, shouldn't it?
Oh, shush, Clark.
Oh, come on. How can I not say hello, Gridserve? You can do all of that.
But you're right, aren't you, Johnny? That's Johnny? Sam, that's the way to do it. It is to put it all under one roof, make things simple. And collaboration is key to this. And Melanie was talking earlier about collaborating with other charge point providers to all come together with Zap Pay under one umbrella to make it easy for customers. Reality, there are commercial interests here. People aren't interested in coming together. They want their own little fiefdom, their own little area where they can operate. Is that right? And how do we challenge that, Linda? You were talking about government and VAT and all this stuff. How do we challenge? How do we come together and make things happen?
I saw somebody earlier on in the group chat talking about bringing a load of people together in Milton Keynes, but it is collaboration. It's talking together. We've all experienced as early adopters a lot of these pain points. We know what they are. We don't all have the solutions for sure, but need to get together to discuss what those issues are. A lot of the time I get quite frustrated with people who are involved in the industry, sorry about this, peoples, who haven't driven an electric car because they haven't experienced the pain. You need to be really honest. And as Melanie said, education is absolutely key. Cars are going out of dealerships with no information whatsoever about how to charge. Or basically, you don't need to know, well, if you've got a charge point, you don't need to know. So we're at fault here of making it complicated. We've just got to come together.
How do we do that, Linda? How can we, is it through the AFP? Is it the Association of Fleet Professionals? Is it something which is purely electric vehicle orientated and pulled together by, I don't know, let's say a motoring organization that might be yellow or orange, who says, do you know what, we're going to champion the EV and get those legislative things sorted, bring the industry together, because frankly, we're all doing our own thing.
Yeah, I don't think it can be any one of those. I think it needs to be, the collaboration needs to start at that point. So you need to bring the players together because it's not just about a vehicle. It's not just about electricity and it's not just about a charge point. We've got to bring all those things together and there's some great things happening, but I think you're right. Let's bring those colors together. Let's get yellow and orange and various other few together. And is information from Zap Map. All the data they've been gathering over the years is vital in that as well.
I can feel a summit coming on, an EV summit, maybe
Here we
COP26. Ooh, now there's a thing. Right, anyway, Ian Muller has a question for Sam. Sam, darling, you may not be able to answer this, but will Gridserve offer subscription cars at any point?
That's a good question. Subscription cars. I think probably at some point, yes, because the whole world is turning subscription, whether it be a Netflix or a car. So I think flexibility of all the tools and products that we use on a day-to-day basis is getting more down that sort of subscription style logic. So I think more flexibility in vehicle choices and lengths of terms of contracts, etc., are somewhat inevitable. You've got companies like Onto already doing it, so there's already that subscription model out there, and I think that some of the big boys that do lots of the lending, who are typically used to 3, 4, or 5 year terms with the vehicles that they're procuring for people to find or to onward finance, I think it's probably going to change in time. But it's a difficult nut to crack that. But yes, I think that is probably the way the world will go as far as EVs are concerned. And it also helps with flexibility and the fact that technology is changing all the time, and it might just help people bridge that gap a little bit and ditch the idea of a stupid hybrid and actually maybe move on to an EV a little bit quicker, knowing that they can have a bit more flexibility and then change to something else if they so wish at a later stage.
I do
a
love
wonderful
when
socially inclusive tool as well, because then you don't have to fork out for the original value. You can chop and change throughout the year. Don't need to own a car for half of the year if you don't see any. So it's a fantastic model to buy.
There is, however, a risk factor or a trade-off, and the trade-off is it's going to cost more money. So EVs are by asset value more expensive, but they are cheaper on a total cost of ownership model over 3 to 5 years today. If you start bringing it forward to a monthly subscription, the Tesla I have right now has doubled in price on the basis of it per month, on the basis of it being on a subscription model where they've reevaluated. I won't say which one it is, but they reevaluated the prices, and now it's nearly twice the price. So there is that risk factor. And going to, just if I may still have the floor for a second, on the roaming element as well, and this is my opinion, not that of my employer, I might add. I am a skeptic of roaming generally, for the same reason, because if there is a contactless solution, to use Gridserve as an example, just for pricing, we're 30 pence a kilowatt hour on the charger, or 24 at the forecourt. If you put roaming in, inevitably the price has to go up, because you're going to have a lot more people in that supply chain that complicates the matter, and every single one needs a pound of flesh. So that price is going to go even higher. And with energy prices on the base level going up all the time as well, the risk factor with roaming is that you just start inflating prices when you don't need to, when a contactless payment can do it at the cheapest rate for you straight away. So I'm a little bit unsure about whether roaming is a strategy that's going to work in the long term.
That actually feeds really nicely into a couple of questions, Sam. Thank you for that. Darren Anvener and Scott Nichols both asked the question around VAT and the fact that if we reduce VAT for electric vehicle fuel energy, aren't we going to cause a public finance issue because they don't pay road fund license, vehicle excise duty? We have a much better deal with EVs. And if you then start to reduce the VAT, where's the money coming from? The exchequer is going to squeak at some point. Do you not agree?
Is that directed at me still? Yeah, I think that all of these incentives, they need to be there, and then they need to be tapered away over time, and that's one of the major things around where's the money coming from that we lost in fuel duty, etc. I like to look at it a little bit wider than that and think about all of the other social implications and all of the other elements of the cost in our society in terms of pollution and what that's causing to the national health and how much that's costing, and putting it as a much wider piece. And seeing where we can make savings, not just about where we have to recover tax.
We are using Sam quite a lot because obviously he's about to get on a flight and we're worried that we're going to lose him. Paul, you have a question? I did.
Well, yeah, more a thought around the question being posed, in the sense of that this VAT issue and all of the charging issues, it is currently a very two-tier system. I think Linda's alluded to it in terms of people that can park at home, and somebody suggested 60% in the chat earlier, but it's probably nearer 40% in the ability to actually have a charge point at home and gain power from it to charge a vehicle. Obviously, that gives you an advantage. One, on the VAT, 5%, and then other on the actual cost of the energy, being, if we take Sam's example, 24p in a public, or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 pence a kilowatt hour out in the public domain. It causes people that have to charge on the street, a different level of cost for running the same vehicle and having the same motivations, and yet the government have legislated that people must buy new vehicles from 2030, but there's still this disparity. So, particularly when I think of van users, of course, my beloved van users, typically they're having to park on the street and charge overnight if they're going to do that, or they park at a workplace or a depot, and a lot of models may have to change. But the same for cars as well, having to charge. So it is something that we absolutely have to focus on and really challenge the government to come up with a system. We're going to have to think of a different system. And they've talked about pence per mile and road charging and all of that sort of stuff to solve this exchequer problem that's going to come. Somebody mentioned 28 billion from fuel duty at the moment. So I think it's an issue that definitely needs some focus on.
Possibly for the EV summit in November in Glasgow. Question from Mark Pierce. Mark's asking about, and I think Melanie may be a good shout if you're here, Mel, talking about the key concerns from end users that would prevent them from using charge points at destination charging, so long stay. What things do people worry about when they are thinking about long stay charging?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes into this general charger anxiety field. I mean, I've experienced it myself. You find a charge point, you get there, and then you need some kind of apps, some kind of way to pay. It's a little bit stressful. You download it, you have to register. Each individual app may be fine, but it's just all the different ones all together, and you're not quite sure how it's all going to work. Are you going to have to do a deposit? Are you going to? So I think, to me, those sort of long stay car parks solutions, it's around making sure there's a simple, repeatable solution, so that people turn up to them and they feel confident they're going to be able to access them. That would be my thought on that.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Jim Blair, bless his heart, from Arnold Clark, is asking the question about the subscription model we spoke about earlier. And he wonders if it would cause more waste, doesn't encourage people to change their asset when they don't need to. A bit like mobile phones, you keep it for a year, 18 months, then you get shot. Do you think that would increase waste? Interesting point. What do you think? Go on, Mel. Initial thought? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, me. Yeah, I mean, interesting. I guess, I'm not someone who buys new cars, but I know people like them. But, there's a whole chain, isn't there? So someone subscribes to a new car, then they have it for a year, then someone else will want to have it at a slightly cheaper price because it's not straight off the forecourt. So it feels like it could be a way to create a sort of perfect market if the pricing was all in line. So I don't see it as a wastage, and I see it as a way that there's a certain segment who want to be in the latest, greatest cars, and why not have it? But there's still a market behind that in the secondhand area. And I think one of the key issues with people shifting to electric cars is the cost, or the perceived cost, or upfront cost, and there needs to be a more flexible secondhand market. I think if anyone's been looking for secondhand EV, you pretty much can get a Nissan Leaf, an i3, a Zoe, or a Tesla. So there's not yet the volume coming through in all the different models. So maybe a subscription will help those move through more quickly. So I wouldn't see it as a negative.
Oh, interesting, controversial. You and Jim Blair in a fight. My money's on you, Mel. Paul.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, Sam touched on an important point with regard to the subscription model. It is, I mean, if you're going to have a vehicle for a month or 2 months or even 6 months, you could be talking at least double the cost of taking a vehicle over a period of time. The rental market is already there and available, although they're not adopting electric vehicles yet, because obviously the return on investment from their perspective is not quite there yet. It's just a more expensive vehicle. But I think as and when the prices kind of begin to level out, I think we'll see the rental market take up. And my concern about the subscription model is just too expensive for people to adopt it as a true alternative to leasing a vehicle over 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, or taking an occasional rental vehicle when you need to. So I'm struggling to see the benefit of it at the moment.
I think there's another point, Paul, which you might be able to comment on, and that some of these shorter term subscription models of a month is an unregulated, non-FCA accredited product as well. Whereas everybody else, the rest of us have to adhere to, the Financial Conduct Authority's regulations and compliance. So that will raise eyebrows eventually as well if more people start doing subscription models and they're not regulated like the rest of us. Yeah, no, absolutely. That is definitely something that you want people to be getting a fair deal, a reasonable deal, and so that playing field is leveled all the time. Definitely.
Thank you all. I think we've got to hand back to JB. JB, am I right?
Yeah, that's right, John. So thank you ever so much, Mel and Linda, and thank you to everyone for their wonderful questions so far. There are still plenty more to answer, but we will go back to the mailroom section straight after the next guest speaker. And could I ask that all special guests stay online for this? So yeah, it's now time to warmly welcome Mr. Charlie Cook. Welcome to the EV Café, Charlie, first time. So yeah, warm welcome. He is also running a tagline competition and I'm winning. So,
one entry, no surprise.
on pure volume of words, you might win.
Are you getting the right charge?
Winner to be announced at Fully Charged, Johnny.
Thanks, Charlie. What do I win?
Not much.
Subscription vehicle.
I'll take that as long as it's not an hour.
From Paul, I suppose.
Yeah, very expensive one.
Charlie, over to you.
Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Charlie Cook. I run a company called RightCharge. That's rightcharge.co.uk. You can jump on now and have a little look. We offer a comparison, or two comparison systems, one for home charge points and another for electric vehicle friendly home energy tariffs. So specialist energy tariffs from energy suppliers that are designed with an EV driver in mind. So that raises, I think, two questions. One is, why compare energy tariffs and what's that got to do with your electric vehicle? The answer is that as soon as you have a car on your driveway, so let's say you're one of the 66% of property owners in the UK that can park at home and charge at home, the moment you start plugging that car in, it totally changes the equation when it comes to which energy tariff is best for you. And whilst we're all predominantly used to electricity tariffs that have a single price of electricity through the day, it's certainly going to be flipped on its head when everyone has an EV at home, and everyone will have electricity tariffs that have off-peak rates. The reason is that as soon as you have an off-peak rate for electricity and you can schedule your charge to get into that off-peak time, and that's typically early morning, say midnight to 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes actually just the weekend, depending on the tariff, you can save hundreds of pounds per year compared to charging on a standard electricity tariff. And for the average driver, if you compare it to a what's known as a standard variable tariff, which available from any supplier, it's more than £500 per year in savings if you make the switch to a specialist EV tariff. So from a customer perspective, that's a huge opportunity, and also a huge opportunity for us as the industry to accelerate the adoption of EVs, because if we can communicate that to drivers that they're actually £500 of savings on the table just by switching, that might nudge someone to get an EV now, where perhaps they would have said, oh, I'll stick out with a FEV or stick out with a petrol for the next one, and get EVs in the future when they're cheaper, right? We need to make sure everyone knows how cheap they can be. So that's the tariff side. The tool it looks like your standard energy tariff comparison tool. It asks some questions about the house, what energy you use, how you pay. But then crucially, we ask, what car do you drive? How far do you drive it? How often do you charge away from home, or how often do you expect to charge away from home? Because most people using this are going to be getting their first EV. And also, can you schedule? Can you smart charge? And we aim to introduce drivers to smart charging through that process as well. So really trying to just make sure that the situation from most people not hearing about this stuff to most people actually understanding the opportunity available from smart charging from the get-go, from the moment they buy their car. So that's the tariff side. On the charge point side, we have a comparison system that gives you recommendations for the charge point based on, do you have solar at home, or are you thinking about getting solar, or can you charge overnight, and therefore you should definitely think about getting a charge point that can schedule, or a smart one, or are you going to have a second charge point at home in the future potentially, in which case you'd certainly want to make sure you're getting your first charge point with load balancing. Or we've rebranded fuse protection just because it feels a bit more intuitive to the sort of new EV driver. If you don't get fuse protection or load balancing with your first charger, then you're likely to have to replace or have a suboptimal experience when you then install that second charger in the future. So the idea is that by going through this process, getting that charge point recommendation, we then connect you with an installer who's got the best price for that charger in your area. And we work with over 60 different installation companies that we vet personally and monitor them so we can maintain great customer service. But if you go through that process, and if a driver goes through that process to begin with, then ultimately we just hope that everyone ends up with the right charge point installed by a reliable installer and the right energy tariff, so you can save money from the get-go. So that's us. I think that there's a wider piece here around how do we incentivize smart charging, or how do we turn the current situation on its head. Ofgem came out with a report recently that was really interesting, that said that the majority of electric vehicle drivers have not changed their tariff since they bought their car. And the only reason you wouldn't change your tariff if you could save over £500 a year is because no one's told you about it. So we're working with some of the biggest automotive retailers in the UK to make sure that drivers en masse are made aware of tariffs from the moment they get their vehicle. And what we're hoping is that consumer awareness piece is going to be what really moves the needle on making smart charge the norm. So our goal as a business is to make smart charging the norm, not the exception. And based on some calculations we've looked at, because the grid is actually 25% cleaner overnight, so most of electricity actually comes, or more electricity comes from clean sources because we turn off our gas turbines. If you apply that 25% saving in carbon to the 50 million EVs that could be on the road in 2030, we have an opportunity to save 7.5 million tons of carbon between now and just 2030, which is the equivalent of planting 124 million trees. So pretty huge opportunity to save millions of pounds for drivers, in fact billions of pounds for drivers, and also millions of tons of carbon. So that's us, and happy to cover any questions.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Charlie. We actually do have a lot of questions in the Q&A tab in the mailroom. So maybe we can use this opportunity to go over to John, and we can start working our way through these questions. Is that mute bingo, is it?
Mute bingo. We've got loads of questions. Damn. Right. Lucy Trott asks a brilliant question. And Linda, stand by. We've got a couple coming to you. This first one from Lucy is, how do you feel about the MPs currently petitioning the government to remove the 2030 ban on ICE new vehicle sales?
Is that for me, John?
No, that was for Linda.
That's for Linda.
Yeah, sorry, Charlie.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say, go for it.
Go ahead, Linda. Go ahead. I was just going to say they'll probably be forgotten, right? But over to you, Linda.
Thanks, Charlie. No, just no, go away. No.
It's madness, isn't it?
Yeah, madness.
Who are these people? And I think that comes back to my point.
Fossil fuel people.
Yeah, that comes back to my point. Don't we need a representative body or a coming together that can collaborate, work together, and challenge these supposed representatives of the people so that we can actually have our say and put our voice into the spotlight?
Wasn't that what the REA was set up to do in this case?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep, and still MPs are still doing their own thing.
Yeah.
What was that lady that was? was it Boris's, one of Boris's aides or advisors has said that she won't drive an electric vehicle because she doesn't want to spend any time charging.
Yeah.
I mean, these people just need a good slap, don't they?
Couldn't possibly sign up to that, but
metaphorically, of course.
Capital punishment. It's the,
off with the head.
Yep.
Back, off to the tower.
Tell you what, you people are ruthless.
And can we, John, can we do a counter proposal with people suggesting that we should change the ban to 2030 and actually bring the hybrid ban forward by 5 years and match it with
2025? Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's no love for the hybrid. I feel sorry for the
Prius even.
No, Prius. I'm posh.
And you're in Scotland too, so.
There was something else, Linda, which was your thoughts on future off-street car parks actually being forced to build wireless charging into every bay as a future-proof idea. That's from Darren Anvener. He's one of our patrons, by the way. What do you think?
I think wireless charging is going to have its place, but it's incredibly expensive. And Paul would say, I mean, it's up to the OEMs to be fitting the wireless charging adapter to the base of the cars. Again, expensive. How low is it to the ground? Is it going to hit the speed bump? There's many, many complications. I think where its application is probably really good is in something like the London taxi, crawling along slowly along its parking bay. But the main thing, again, as my silly little slide was showing, we've got electricity and we've got car, and what happens in between is anybody's business. Let's get the cabling, the conduit, the infrastructure below ground right, and the hardware that goes on top will ultimately need to be changed over years anyway, hopefully recycled and reused in another way. But if it's there, then yes, in 5-10 years time, maybe wireless will be at a stage that we can do that, but we're not there yet.
Linda, can I just challenge your silly little slide? There was so much reaction to your slides when they were live because people were saying, that's so simple. It's so easy to understand. So well done, you. Slides, are they made available generally? I don't know.
Happy to share mine.
I think that would be really, really helpful because I think a lot of people went, yes, that's good.
Is it good to share them on the page, the EV Café page?
I'm going to, if that's okay. I've taken a little screen grab and I'll be putting it on the summary because everyone loved it.
Wonderful. Good.
Well, but also the decks themselves. I think that somebody, was it Deborah Rowcroft asked for that.
There's a brilliant question about renters, people renting homes and encouraging landlords to put charging infrastructure into rented properties. Anybody fancy having a crack at what arguments you would use to encourage your landlord to put in charging infrastructure? For me, it's about making your property more rentable. It's more attractive, Sarah.
We could always follow the model in the Netherlands where if you want to live in that beautiful, affordable, sustainable, clean energy environment, then you have downstairs EV charging and shared car ownership. So it's not for you to share, to have your own car. You're there to share, and everything's shared. The recycling points are shared, the solar is shared, everything's shared in a one per month payment. And this has been really popular with sort of social inclusivity because it's not an exclusive thing. It's actually utilizing energy that makes your cost of living more affordable. So here in the UK, we're trying to replicate it. We're seeing lots of nice sort of harborside apartments trying to do the same thing, limiting the number of vehicles allowed in city centres. But we haven't quite got to the point where private landlords yet are seeing the benefits unless they've got on site sort of combined heat and power potential. So it's all about crunching the numbers for the landlord and showing the advantages of having a sort of a sticky tenant, someone who'll stay.
A sticky tenant is a horrible thought. Charlie, are you with me, Charlie?
I'm here.
Are you recommending changing to Economy 7? Is a question from Paul Hughes.
Economy 7, so they're the tariffs that have been around since I think about 1970, originally for storage heaters. And actually, to be honest, the EV friendly tariffs that I talk about and that we display on the website, you can think of them as like the new breed of Economy 7 tariffs. They're essentially the same principle. You have an off-peak period overnight, you put as much charging or as much electricity consumption in that period, and you save money. Except the difference is that there's some slight changes in that, you know, some of the timeframes are shorter to make the price lower during that period, and you don't need necessarily 7 full hours to charge your vehicle if you're, you know, charging 2-3 times a week. And some of them, you know, will actually have an off-peak period at the weekend instead of overnight. And then additionally, you know, there's extra things that suppliers are putting around as a package, so you can sometimes get discounts on charge points or public charging and subscriptions. And even actually as a sort of new breed that's coming to market at the moment, which involve the energy supply themselves supporting the smart charging process. So they say that you can have a rate of, I don't know, 6p all day, but we'll manage your charging in a way that works for your lifestyle. And if you're happy with that, you can have, you know, you can have a cheap rate all the time. So yeah, similar to Economy 7, but the new breed.
Brilliant answer. Thank you. Paul Barnfather. Now, this is going to be a bun fight, this question. So I'm going to just ask you to put your hands up if you want to answer it. How would the panel prevent, discourage, or punish charge point blocking? Not icing, so not with a combustion engine vehicle, but EVs. Because Linda, you talked about, you know, take them outside. Yeah, exactly. How would you punish people for if you drive an EV and you park in a space? Sam, yours was the first hand I saw.
Yes. I think that Tesla do this already with costs attributed to people who are plugged in but not charging. And I think we need to be, all of us probably need to be quite fierce on the penalties for doing that, so that people, you know, have to, you know, there's a large cost involved in dwell time far and exceeding what you need to be there for. I think that it wouldn't take long for that sort of incentive or disincentive to get people to stop doing that, to the point where I think even in the future we ought to look at timing of tariffs on public charging in terms of what the price is at different times of day. But also potentially different pricing during your charging cycle, especially on the DC stuff where you can, where the charger can see what the state of charge is. And what by that I mean, 0 to 80% might be X, and the last bit might be just a touch more to discourage people from doing that end of charge curve, sat on the charger, getting from 90 to 100% for 45 minutes when they probably don't need to, and someone else might be waiting. So I think there's a few different levers that we can push there to make that happen.
See, some people think he's just an aging boy band member, but really he knows his stuff. Sarah, what do you think?
Just to bolster that, overstay is unanimous in the chat as well. It's a really important factor, but not forgetting the end user isn't always thinking about it. So having a push notification, and that's up to the CPO to make sure that they've got that embedded in their software. So it's just about working together with the public and understanding what they need. And actually Zap Map will know all about it, because you're by far our biggest public voice for EV charging. So just remember, clear signage always, and also push notifications with plenty of warning. And then I'm wondering if there's a way of appealing, just like if you think you've parked correctly, but you haven't parked correctly, and then you end up with a fine that you can contest. So I think it's important to just keep it flexible, particularly in a workplace or a hub environment where you might get caught up and genuinely caught up in a meeting. So I think, yeah, a little bit of flexibility and user communication.
And there was one further yellow shirt that had a finger in the air, and I can't remember whether it was Johnny or Paul.
Wasn't me.
Oh, right. I agree with Sam and Sarah that the CPO should do more. I'll just highlight BP Pulse. They charge £10 after 90 minutes, which is, I don't think is enough. But I also think that potentially the back office providers, the charge point management systems, could do more. Those that you have to register for to get access could incorporate, I think, like a clever nudging system. And it reminds me of those days of the Charge Pump app, for those that remember. And I don't know what the latest app is of today, but again, those apps didn't really work because not many people were using them. But yeah, just some other thoughts on how we can stop people from blocking charge points.
I think I subscribe to Linda's view, frankly.
Melanie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is, you know, yeah, I think definitely the CPOs, they're the ones who've got the control of the money side. And I know that Charge Scotland.
Sorry, just as CPO, we're not allowed acronyms.
Sorry, the network,
operators.
the charge point operator. So I know that based on a lot of community feedback, Charge Place Scotland are pretty hot on this, and they charge massive overstay charges. But I think apart from that, I think there is also the power of the community. So the power of the community to educate and, you know, talk to people about not plugging in, you know, a PHEV into a Rapid and talking about not, you know, there's sort of a, just like the disabled places, people used to park in them, now people don't. You know, there is a kind of a cultural thing that needs to happen, I think, at the same time as technical solutions.
Agree with you entirely, Mel. Bit of peer pressure.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then hang them.
Yeah.
Abdul Bassett. Oh, Johnny's hand is in the air.
We'll just have to cut for a second and come back to the mailroom section in 5 minutes' time, because it's now time for the moment we have all been waiting for. It's our news round. So let's go live to Sarah from the studio. What do you have for us, Sarah?
The EV Café News, of course. Hello and welcome to the EV Café News with me, Sarah Sloman. It's lunchtime, pay attention. Our brilliantly pioneering EV Café partner sponsor, MyEnergy, has officially opened its state-of-the-art UK headquarters in Lincolnshire. According to Alec Peachy's Transport and Energy News, the company, which was founded in 2016, has grown to a team of more than 200 members in just 5 years and plans to add an advanced manufacturing centre to the site. MyEnergy recently sold its 100,000th unit and has committed to its roots in Lincolnshire as a hub for innovation. Congratulations to all involved. And more jolly news next, with EV charge points set to become next great British emblem. The soon-to-be iconic EV charge point emblem could be seen on streets across the country from 2022, following the appointment of the Royal College of Art firm PA Consulting to deliver an iconic British charge point design. Charging locations are set to get a facelift and be noticed by the wider audience, and the design will be revealed at the COP26 in Glasgow this November. I mean, you could have paid me. I got an A star for my art at school, and I'm still available. Just call me at any time. The latest research conducted by EY and published in their latest EY Mobility Consumer Index survey of more than 1,000 consumers across the UK and 9,000 globally revealed that 40% of those looking to purchase a car said they would like to buy a zero-emission vehicle. That's an increase of 16% on November's figures, according to Fleetworld. The survey also reveals the concern about the environment is the top of the reason for buying an EV. Nearly 50% felt that buying an EV is one way to achieve this, but leasing, loaning and sharing is also an option, just saying. Meanwhile, according to Green Fleet News, 7 major British companies, Direct Line, BP, BT, Royal Mail, Scottish Power, Severn Trent and Tesco, have come together to form the Electric Vehicle Fleet Accelerator, the EVFA. This will work to help accelerate the mass adoption of electric vehicles across the UK. The EVFA has released a report outlining a series of urgent actions needed from both industry and government to deliver the targets as part of the Build Back Better Business Council. If the government delivers on this agenda, the EVFA members have committed to converting the fleets involved to electric vehicles by 2030 and to buying British. 70,000 British-built vans by 2030 or sooner. So the question remains, Mr. Paul Kirby, EV Essentials, the electric van man, the very one, does this go far enough? Back to the studio.
Well, does it go far enough? It is a really good question. I'm excited by this announcement. I think it was broken by our very close friend Alec Peachy in Transport and Energy, but has obviously been repeated elsewhere in Greenfleet and other places. It's a very exciting announcement. 70,000 vans by 2028, I think they said. And then as part of 700,000 vans by 2030. It was a significant commitment, but that still only represents 20% of the market over that period of time. So arguably, there's 7 companies. There's also the Global Action Plan Clean Van Commitment, which has got another 40 companies all signing up to that same kind of 2028 deadline of converting all of their vehicles. But what it does do is send a clear message that the UK is a great place to be building electric vans. Great that the gigafactories are out there. Great that Stellantis have invested in the Ellesmere Port factory. So an Arrival is coming on strong. So British built vans, yes.
Let me just say.
Oh, Samson.
I was just going to say 2 very quick things. Firstly, Sarah, news, brilliant. Well done, as always. Secondly, British Charger. We have so many things to sort out and make in this industry. Making some sort of iconic charging symbol is not one of them. Total waste of time. Total waste of time.
We'll go with Sarah's then. We'll just go with Sarah's.
Yeah.
I love that. That's brilliant.
JC, you were going to say something.
We only have 5 minutes left. Sorry, did someone else want to say something?
JC was going to say something.
Oh, right. JC.
All I was going to say was, if you came up with an acronym, EVFA, seriously, have a word with yourselves.
I've got a better acronym. ICE FO, Foxtrot Oscar, I think, or something like that. Anyway,
that's up there with your tagline, mate. Up there with your tagline.
John, we only have 5 minutes left. So are there any questions left outstanding? If so, can we get some of them answered? If there are too many, can we maybe ask the panelists to have a look and type some answers?
Honestly, we've got 7, 8 questions there now, and they're so complex. There's one I particularly want to get to because it's unusual. Abdul Bassett has asked, and he's asked very, very, in a very beautiful way. May I know, he starts, how to pre-qualify reliable EV chargers on consumer and commercial level in terms of regulation and standardization, regardless of slow, fast, rapid and ultra fast. Is there a body which regulates charging in the UK? Anybody?
Paul Barnfather says it's a great question. So if he doesn't know, then I'm not sure anybody does.
It is a great question.
In terms of a body that regulates charges, I think the closest we've got from a hardware perspective is OZEV, in terms of their accreditation of a charge point for the grant. Beyond that, I think
as well, though.
No, it's workplace and home, right? So that's just AC, absolutely. So DC, I don't think so.
No.
AC at home and workplace, all you've got is that accreditation that it meets those criteria, which if you're a consumer is probably not the most important criteria. You want to know, is it reliable? Are they a good company? Do they provide good service? And realistically, there's not really a body that does that. I mean, we try and do that to a certain extent with our selection of chargers. We only show chargers that we believe, we trust in, that we know are reliable. And if we hear anything about them not being so, we take them off the site. So straight away for consumers, we try to make sure there's a reliable selection. And we also have user reviews. And I think possibly that would be the most powerful way to start to understand, the relative performance of charge points over time, is just for people to review them, and you get the power of the crowd basically in that way.
But you would think that with something as deadly as an electric vehicle charging piece of kit, that it would have to meet specific.
It certainly does, John. Yeah, sorry. Not to say they do have to meet certain regulations to be safe, and it's IET. Oh no, that's another acronym. But yeah, there's electrical bodies that make sure that they're both manufactured and installed in ways that are safe and meet regulations.
Indeed. Thank you, Charlie. It's 28 minutes past 1. We're getting close to the end. Paul's got his hand in the air. It's either a toilet break or a question.
It's not a toilet break, and it's not a question, actually. So before we go, John, you've alluded in throwaway comments to an event at COP26. Which,
did you see what I did there?
I know. And so just for those of you that are here and on the... we're going to put out a post in the not too distant future that will register your interest for an EV Café event at COP26. We will have only limited places, but we will be looking to do something. So look out for that post, register your interest, and we will bring you some details of how that might look in the not too distant future. So be aware. COP26 is coming.
Brilliant. Well, I guess at 29 past, that's all we have time for today. So I would say, does anyone else have any last words? Sarah, did you have your hand up then? Sorry.
Both hands up.
Can I go and check in now?
Thank you, Sam.
I hope that's a zero emission.
Good effort, Sam.
Lovely to see everyone. Thank you so much. And don't forget, everyone, just drive forward into your communities and get the word out. We want to help people convert away from internal combustion. So anything you can do to share our post, please do. Please like our page and follow us on YouTube, where you can find the whole of the episode for anyone who missed it.
Can I just say, Keith Woodcock has just said he's posted on LinkedIn that the EV Café is the best place or the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Oh, blimey.
Bless that man.